Good evening, fellow graduate students. My name is Leah Taylor, and I am currently enrolled at Azusa Pacific University in the PE 589 class with Professor Cynthia Tanis. First of all, I want to give encouragement to all of you as we finish this class, resulting in receiving a master's degree. It's been a lot of hard work, and we have all had to make major sacrifices. So, congratulations to all of us. We will forever have the privilege of saying we have earned our master's degrees. Thank you also for allowing me to present my findings and defend my research. In this presentation, I'm going to explain my purpose statement and research questions, expound upon my values, faith, and beliefs as they relate to my topic, discuss 3 scholarly reviews of literature, explain the methods I used in my research, the results of my research, and some of the conclusions and final claims that were found in my results. So, let's get started. The topic I chose to research is whether age is a determining factor for how well students with moderate to severe disabilities are able to learn and remember new skills in physical education class. Learning new skills keeps fitness fun, and being able to remember how to perform those skills will help to maintain fitness over a long period of time. As physical educators, our job is to set our students up with a foundation of motor skills and knowledge in order to maintain a healthy lifestyle into adulthood. Just because my students have disabilities doesn't change the purpose of my job as an adapted physical education teacher. So the purpose of my research was to examine the ability of students with moderate to severe disabilities based on age to acquire and retain a new sequence adapted physical education routine. The central research questions were as follows. To what extent are students with moderate to severe disabilities able to acquire a new routine in adapted physical education? Second, to what extent are students with moderate to severe disabilities able to retain a new routine in adapted physical education? And lastly, how does the age of the student affect their ability to acquire and retain a new skill in adapted physical education? My faith and values apply to this research because I believe everyone, regardless of ability or disability, deserve equal opportunities to live healthy, happy lives. Jesus Christ loved and respected people regardless of ability and disability, which sets the example for Christians to do the same thing. I also try to keep in mind what the Bible says of loving others before ourselves, which means loving these precious individuals who have disabilities. A value that is lacking in Christian churches is a ministry for the disabled population where they can come to diet and exercise classes at a church. Then the church has the opportunity to share the gospel with whomever attends their church. Parents of individuals with disabilities love programs that engage their children, and churches are supposed to help those who are less fortunate, so these types of programs would be providing a tremendous service for families who have members with disabilities. For the first scholarly article review, I chose a study titled Motor Signs Distinguish Children with High-Functioning Autism and Asperger's Syndrome from Controls. It is important to note that in current research, Asperger's is no longer a term. High-functioning autism and Asperger's are essentially the same things. It is important to remember that as I continue, for those terms have been interchangeable. So the purpose of this study was to compare the results on a motor skills standardized assessment of the Asperger's group and the control group. Participants included 40 boys in the Asperger's group and 55 in the control group, which was comprised of typically developed boys. Researchers used the physical and neurological exam for subtle signs, a motor assessment, and statistically analyzed the results according to age. Using student t-tests, results showed that Asperger's group had lower overall scores than the control group. This study provided important information that individuals with autism have delayed motor skills, and in this study that I researched, I had plenty of students with students with autism across the spectrum, ranging in severity and signs. The second scholarly article review sought to find evidence of motor impairments in adults with Asperger's and to describe the impairments that were found. There was a small sample group of 7 women and 8 men between the ages of 18 and 35 who have Asperger's. The control group had 29 typical 19-year-olds. Researchers used the Bruings-Osterix test of motor proficiency to collect scores for gross motor skills, fine motor skills, and upper limb coordination. Statistical analysis was completed using t-tests for each group's average score in each category. The Asperger's group scored lower than the control group in all categories, showing a trend that individuals with autism tend to have delayed gross motor skills. The third and last scholarly review for this presentation set out to determine whether children with autism showed motor milestone delays before the age of 3, and if so, which skills were delayed. Researchers found parents of children with autism for them to fill out a questionnaire based on their memory of their child's development. There were 32 boys with autism and 12 girls. Sample questions from the survey included when their child was able to independently lift their head, roll from their stomach to their back, walk, crawl, roll, etc. Results from the questionnaire were gathered and compared to Bayley's motor milestone assessment for typical children. Results showed that all 26 milestones on the Bayley's assessment occurred at an older age for the children with autism compared to their typical peers. This means that children with autism have delayed motor skills from infancy, which could be a reason for the delayed motor skills achieved at an older age. Now, to get back to my study. As I stated earlier, I am an adapted physical education teacher, but what I didn't mention is that I teach full-time at a special education school. This school is for students between the ages of 12 and 22, so we have a middle school class, a high school class, and a transition class. This is where I found my participants. 10 students from the middle school class, 10 students from the high school class, and 10 students from the transition class. I ended up overall with 13 girls and 17 boys. All of my students receive adapted PE services, and all of my students have moderate to severe disabilities. The survey instrument that was used was the Acquisition and Retention Survey, which I filled out based on student records for the 12 demographic questions and 9 other questions that were pertinent to the research. And I observed student performance on the motor skills section. I did not use a Likert scale, nor were there any open-ended questions. The procedure included a 4-step obstacle course in this specific order. First, the student walked up 3 steps, then down 3 steps. Second, they walked across a 3-inch wide and 8-foot long balance beam. Third, they ran through 6 hula hoops, placed on the ground with 1 foot in each hula hoop. Lastly, they ran slalom through 8 cones, or in a zigzag pattern. The week of testing, I tested each participant individually and separately from the rest of the class during my prep period so that other students wouldn't watch or be distracted. If other students watched, they would be able to learn the skills faster than the other students, and this would have damaged my results. The first week, I taught them the obstacle course and recorded which obstacles they were able to learn and which ones they couldn't. Then, for the second week, I recorded which obstacle each student remembered in the correct order, and the third week, I simply marked whether or not the student remembered how to complete each obstacle in the correct order. I wanted to know if the younger students would be able to learn new skills better than the older students, or vice versa. I also wanted to measure their ability to remember the skills I teach them so that I, or other APE teachers who may come across my research, can see how well this population of students can acquire new skills at various ages. The results of the survey showed several disabilities for each group. The populations that were represented in my study were autism, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, visual impairment, hard of hearing, and other health impairment, which would include seizure disorders. The years of APE each group had were averaged, resulting in 6.9 years for the youngest group, 10.4 years for the middle group, and 12.7 for the oldest group. The results for each age group's ability to complete the obstacle course is significant. You can see the results on the PowerPoint, but with so much information, I will summarize. The youngest group performed worse than the other groups for each week and for each obstacle. The middle age group performed better than the younger group, but worse than the oldest group. And the oldest group performed better than the middle and youngest age group in each category for each skill. From these results, it can be concluded that the age of the individual with a disability affects their ability to learn and retain new skills. It was obvious during the testing that the third and fourth obstacle was much more difficult for the students to learn and remember because of the higher level thinking it required. Also, those participants who were able to acquire a new skill in the correct order were also able to retain that skill in the following weeks. If a student wasn't able to learn a new skill, they didn't remember it in the following weeks. Implications from the study were significant. Individuals who received more years of adapted PE services performed the best on the acquisition and retention survey, demonstrating that they have better motor skill acquisition and retention. This means that those who receive more adapted PE services have better motor skills. Recommendations for future research would be to conduct a similar survey, but to study only one disability. Because I grouped the various disabilities together, it is hard to tell whether a type of disability was a factor or even whether the severity of the disability was a factor. Also, there were only 30 participants total in the study. So to make this research more reliable, it is suggested to use a larger sample size. This will increase the validity of the research. And from this research, it is recommended to physical educators to make sure they are teaching their students motor skills, giving students the opportunity to practice and improve motor skills, and to give enough time for students to practice their motor skills. Fundamental motor skills are important for all individuals, and some need more time than others, especially individuals with autism. It is important to remember that from this research, the results showed that students who received more years of adapted physical education performed better, which means the more years of APE students with disabilities receives means the better motor skills they're going to have in the long run for the rest of their life. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and I look forward to answering any questions.